In the blackest day, in the darkest night, no evil shall escape my sight. And those who worship evil's might, beware my power, jobber's light! Ladies and gentlemen, Monday Night Raw tonight was bad. Now, obviously, you're wondering, why did this dude just do the Green Lantern saying? The reason why I did this is because Liv Morgan came out tonight with her new Crown Jewel Championship ring, and it looks like a Green Lantern ring, right? It looks corny, it looks cheesy. I love Green Lantern, but I don't like Liv Morgan. Now, here's the thing. This episode of Raw is not one of the worst episodes I've ever seen, but this was a pretty bad episode, right? But comparatively speaking to the last 4 or 5 months, this would just be considered in the mid category. So this episode of Raw overall, when you incorporate everything I just said, was most likely below mid. Now let's talk about what we started off with, which this is going to be an unmitigated rant for the first 4 minutes of this video at least, right? Because this makes no sense, and it's absolutely unacceptable. Now, we start off with Liv Morgan opening the show after she won the Crown Jewel Women's Championship. She's got the ring, all the other nonsense. In reality, right? The fact is that Triple H now trusts Liv Morgan to actually open up the show because Rhea Ripley's not there. Jey Uso's probably headed over to SmackDown with Jimmy and Sammy, so you have no other stars on the show outside of Braun Breaker, and Liv Morgan's not even a star. The only one that's an actual star based off of talent is Braun Breaker, but when he's busy doing other things, like probably going to feud with Sheamus next or somebody else, he doesn't have time to open up the show. He's too good for that apparently, right? So he just doesn't show up to work. That makes about sense. But Liv Morgan opens up the show and says absolutely nothing, right? All she basically goes out there and says is that she's Liv Morgan, the revenge tour. I took Rhea's title. Rhea is going to be out for a very long time. You're not the Joker. You're not Harley Quinn. It's time to cut promos. Her, Chelsea Green, Tiffany Stratton, and all these other people, most of these other people, have the same exact personality. They all sound the same. It's just, oh, Tiffy time, Chelsea Green, Rhea. Dude, can we get some differentiating between all these jobbers? It's hard to keep track of it all because they're all bums, right? But Liv Morgan basically said she's the greatest world champion ever because she beat Nia Jax. She's the Crown Jewel champion. She injured Rhea. Blah, blah, blah. This is where things get absolutely out of hand. Bianca and Jade come out in these Deadpool outfits, right? Like Ryan Reynolds' stupid Mint Mobile ad that comes on every episode of Raw or SmackDown. Mint Mobile. Hugh Jackman. Yeah, have you seen Deadpool and Wolverine? Deadpool and Wolverine. Come on, dude. Come on, man. Everything is just unfocused. It's an absolute mess. I love Marvel. I love DC. But these references are way outdated, dude. We're way outdated. You know what I'm saying? Deadpool and Wolverine came out 4 months ago. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, they come out and basically cut mid-promos themselves. They're basically, listen, Liv Morgan, you think that we forgot what you did last week when you basically ignored us and tried to talk trash to us last week backstage? And Liv Morgan's the only reason you guys are still together is because of those tag belts, because both of you think you're the best, but neither of you are. And that was a decent line. I'm not going to lie. That's probably the best thing Liv Morgan's done. And even though it's her best thing, it's still just a mid-line. And after this, Adam Pearce comes out. His bald head comes out. I'm surprised he didn't take his glasses off and do what he always does after he got RKO'd, the other night by Randy Orton, right? I'm going to tell you something right now. Adam Pearce, low-key, an interesting storyline would be him sending Bronson Reed to SmackDown to go beat up Nick Aldis because Randy Orton RKO'd him at Crown Jewel. It would be a nice little dynamic between, the two GMs because Nick Aldis is a former wrestler, same with Adam Pearce. Imagine you get a GM versus GM match at Survivor Series as well, right? Wouldn't that be kind of cool to just see, a quick little 5-10 minute match between the GMs? I think that would be fun, right? But anyways, Adam Pearce comes out and announces that there's going to be a women's battle royal to determine the number one contender for Liv Morgan's Women's World Championship, right? So Bianca and Jade are in it. A lot of these other jobbers are in it. And here is where the problem begins, everybody. Why in the world are there only 15 women in this match? Do you see what I'm saying? You have an entire roster of women who's not world champions. The only ones that are world champions are Liv Morgan and Nia Jax. So realistically, everyone else in the women's division should be in this match, correct? Or at least 20 to 30 people should be in the match instead of 14 random jobbers from Raw, right? Because what is the point of wrestling if you're not trying to win the world championship gold? You get what I'm saying? But the reason why nobody else is in this match besides 14 jobbers is because, number one, the women's roster is not deep enough. It just isn't. And the reason why it's not deep enough is because nobody cares what half of these jobbers are doing. And they're basically telling you the Women's World Championship and the WWE Women's Championship mean nothing. Because even when there's a battle royal to fight for the World Championship, you win it, you're a first contender to the shot. You have the first shot to contend for the title. And no one's in the match. There's literally 14 people in here. They're all jobbers. Zelina Vega, Maxine Dupree, who has potential, but she's not being used right, so who cares? The PFC, they're all jobbers. Lyra Valkyria, who nearly got her neck snapped in half by Io Sky, who botched a German suplex this match. We're going to get to the botches later that happened during this show, but it's just absolutely ridiculous at this point, right? No one wants the title, and because no one wants the title in storyline, it makes us care for the championship less. And you know what else makes us care less? The fact that Rhea Ripley is written off TV for 3 months. So we know Rhea Ripley will either return at the Royal Rumble or for the Elimination Chamber, and she will win one of those and challenge Liv for the title at Mania and win it back. So for the next 6 months, we're going to get no new faces in the women's division. We know the predictable outcome of Liv Morgan versus whoever is challenging for the title, and we know nothing's going to change for 5 months straight. You think that Liv Morgan is going to hold up for 5 months? They're going to keep her as champ, but this reign is garbage. And the fact that Rhea is getting written off conveniently when the story got super stale, nobody cared about Liv and Rhea anymore, the storyline has gotten dry, the new Judgment Day is crap, and now all of a sudden she's written off TV. This is what I tell you guys. You guys see how I predicted this, man? I tell you guys every single video, every week. The women's championships and all these world titles mean nothing because the people that WWE present to you as stars like Liv Morgan don't get treated as such. Bianca and Jade get eliminated from this battle royal, right, by Liv Morgan and Raquel. They team up and kind of, to just rip them out of the match and throw them out of the ring. And then after this happens, Io Sky, long story short, ends up winning the match, and that's it. That's it. So Io Sky's the number one contender to lose to Liv Morgan in a couple weeks on Raw, most likely, or at Survivor Series, right? In a predictable match. Someone like Io, who shows up to work, wrestles better than Liv Morgan, and in backstage segments and stuff is better than Liv Morgan is on the mic in the ring. Obviously, the language barrier prohibits, Io Sky from doing certain things, but that's still fine. With her talent, she's a lot more talented than Liv Morgan. So is Bianca and so is Jade. But the common denominator here is every one of them is going to be losing to Liv Morgan for the next 6 months, which is absolutely embarrassing. Instead of giving a new woman a shot, or instead of giving someone else a shot at a world title, we're just going to skip over it and just feed into the Liv Morgan BS narrative. Anyways, now let's get to the next thing, which was a segment with the Miz pretty much comes out there. It's a backstage thing with him and Uncle Howdy, right? Uncle Howdy has now captured the Miz, and the reason he's captured the Miz is because the Miz has been misleading people and hurting people for years. Let me tell you something straight, right? The Uncle Howdy faction, the Wyatt Six, are jobbers. I hope people are understanding that and realizing that. You are feuding with the Final Testament, a group that goes out and gets a maximum of 3% of the crowd reacting. They're jobbers. Why do you think that the Uncle Howdy, the Wyatt Six family, was off of TV after beating Chad Gable in the American Made and all that stuff? Because nobody cares anymore. After Chad Gable lost to them, Chad Gable continued to literally be normal in everything that he was doing. The Creed brothers are still normal. Everything's the same. The Wyatt Six make absolutely no difference. And whether they're on the show or not on the show, nothing changes. And now you have a multiple time WWE champion like The Miz is now relegated to doing weirdo segments with the Wyatt Six, who are all jobbers. The Miz has been downgraded, and it's disrespectful to see this, man. A guy with that talent who's done this much for the company, and he's relegated to being a bum jobber. It's just like the situation with Bobby Lashley, but I mean, obviously Lashley's situation was worse because he got fired, but this is ridiculous, man. It is insane. I mean, goodness gracious. The Miz does so much. Bobby Lashley does so much. Sheamus does so much. And all of these dudes end up just being mid-carders or undercard jobbers with the talents that they have. It's very sad to see what's happening over the last couple years in this company, but anyways, that doesn't matter. After this, we get New Day versus Viking Raiders. You already know what happened with this match. It's the same stuff. Kofi and Xavier, they get into it, miscommunication, blah, blah, blah. No one cares. We have to wait 9 months for any heel turn or anything to happen because Triple H's booking is literally made for snails, right? That's literally the point of the booking. Then we get out of this and we get the most important segment of the night pretty much. Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, and Sammy Uso, I should say, right? Uso! Jey Uso comes out there, and he basically is like, look, we need to reconcile what just happened the other night because Sammy accidentally kicked Roman in the face. Jimmy comes out and tells Jey to his face he's pissed off because at the end of the day, why in the world is he kicking Roman in the face, right? It pisses him off and he's like, Sammy was never blood to begin with, Jey, you were right. And then Sammy basically brings up a good point. He's like, Jimmy, what about your track record, your history, right? You both were super kicking me in the face and treating me like garbage as Roman was trying to treat Jey like garbage, right? So the whole situation is messed up and Sammy just basically tells them both, I'm done. I'm not involved in this because even though it's felt great, us four teaming up at Crown Jewel for a minute or two, it felt like the back in the day, feeling oozy. What did that thing that Sami Zayn said on SmackDown that one night? He's like, oh yeah, I specialize in getting in people's head. You know what I'm saying? I lay down my mat, I'm dancing in their head, I'm messing with their head, I'm doing a dance with it, and Roman and Paul Heyman and Jey Uso are breaking character. Like, that was an awesome segment, man. But anyways, dude, basically, the long story short here is that Sami says, no, I don't want to be in this bloodline again because every time we try and do this, it doesn't work out, right? So Sami walks away. But Jey Uso says, you know what, Jimmy, you're wrong. He isn't blood, but he is still family, bruh. He's still our brother. And so Jey Uso tells Sami, come to SmackDown this week, and Roman Reigns, who will be on SmackDown this week, which shout out to Roman Reigns for showing up every week for the last, month and a half at this point, bro. Like, big up to the Big Oos, you know what I'm saying? It's about time that an actual superstar showed up to work and actually contributed something, so thanks for that, Roman Reigns. Even though Triple H is booking him like a wimp by having him lose clean to Solo Sikoa, but we already talked about that in the Crown Jewel review, whatever. It is what it is, right? But long story short, Friday we're going to get Roman, Jimmy, Jay, and Sami in the same ring in a promo segment, most likely, talking about everything that went down at Crown Jewel and talking about how things are going to be going forward in order to continue the bloodline. And it ends off with Jey Uso telling Sami, we got Jimmy Uso, we got Jey Uso, and we got Sami Uso. So it's going to be fun, man. Sami's a great comedy worker, so is Jay, so is Jimmy, and Roman is, he's just like the guy who's like the stoic dude in it, but he also has his moments of breaking character too, so it's going to be fun to see all these people interact along with the new bloodline, because Solo's been showing great charisma recently, and he's been doing a good job too, so we'll see what happens with that. After this, we get an absolute banger. Not Crown Jewel. I don't know why I said that. Chad Gable versus Dragon Lee. As soon as I saw the graphic flash up on the screen for this match to happen, I was like, holy crap, this is going to be a banger. And it absolutely was. The false finishes, the German suplexes, right? First off, we need to talk about this. Like I said earlier, that Lyra Valkyria nearly broke her neck off of a German suplex from what's her name, from Io Sky. You should not be doing German suplexes if you're 5'2". You get what I'm saying? Suplexes are designed for you to at least, if you're not going to be that big, you have to at least be strong and know where to place your opponent so they land on their back or land on their, their lower spine area rather than landing directly on their neck and in their shoulder area. That's too dangerous, right? That's why people like Brock Lesnar specialize in German suplexes, because they're always going to put the opponent where they need to be 95% of the time. You're not going to get any of these weird botches where someone's career is at stake by getting their neck broken, right? That's just a basic matter. But Chad Gable does some great suplexes inside of this match, and then he hit his finisher and he won the match, right? But that's not Dragon Lee won this match by doing his finisher, where he basically launches himself off the ground and does this pseudo reverse DDT kind of situation. It was a pretty cool move. But these two just meshed very well in the ring. The chemistry was great. The high flying moves were great. Like I said, the suplex countering and maneuvers they were doing for a sequence in it were absolutely awesome. Chad Gable flipped Dragon Lee onto his back, off the apron onto the ground, near the barricade area. It was really, really good, dude. And I honestly just thought that it was a very entertaining match from start to finish, and that both of their styles just worked to put on a good match, right? Chad Gable's great in the ring, and Dragon Lee's very good in the ring, and he's extremely athletic, and he's pretty young too on the younger side of the roster. So I enjoyed this. I thought it was a good match. After this happened, we got a couple backstage segments, I believe. I can't even remember if there was backstage segment. There may have been one. Oh yeah, there's one with Gunther. That's right. Gunther had a backstage segment, and pretty much he's just telling Jackie Redmond, he's like, pretty much, I lost to Cody, I lost clean, I lost straight up, Cody. And Ludwig tries to interject and be like, all these people who are fighting Gunther tonight, even Cody, what he did on Sunday was an absolute fluke. It was fake. And Gunther tells him, he's like, no, relax. We need to do better, and we need to be better as a group, right? And he tells Ludwig that, and Ludwig gives his face. He's like, what? What is this guy talking about? Ludwig looks a bit upset and a bit conniving, so expect a Ludwig Kaiser heel turn soon on Gunther, right? Or I guess not a heel turn. I guess it would be a face turn in general, but, he would be turning on his buddy. That's what I mean to say. So that's what's apparently going to happen. Gunther says the normal stuff. He says that the match has 3 competitors plus Dom, so he doesn't consider Dom an even real threat or a real competitor, so that was a nice little line. And that was pretty much this segment. It is what it is. Nothing really crazy happened about it. It's kind of like the Sami and Jay and Jimmy promo, right? It didn't further a lot, but it was still a fun segment to watch. It was decent. This wasn't decent. It was just kind of boring, but, it's your Gunther segment for the night. Like I always say, the world champions and champions in general, they don't wrestle. So why are you expecting them to wrestle and do something meaningful? Obviously, they're going to show up in a suit and say absolute nonsense. This is common knowledge at this point with this new era of WWE, quote unquote, right? Then we get to the main event. Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins versus Sheamus versus Dominic Mysterio. In this match, basically nothing happens. And a similar thing happens to the Women's Royal Rumble, or the Women's Rumble from earlier, right? Where it was like the winner gets a number one contenders chance at Liv Morgan's World Championship. Nothing matters in this match. Do you really think that Sheamus and Gunther are going to run it up for the 15th time straight, and you know Sheamus is going to lose? There's no point of that. Dominic Mysterio is never going to be in a World Championship match, or at least a meaningful World title match. He may have a World title match versus like a bum like Damian Priest or something like that, but he'll never have a World Championship match against someone who WWE is actually pushing to be a good champion. Like, Gunther is not going to defend his World title versus Dominic Mysterio. You get what I'm saying? Seth Rollins, obviously, we knew he wasn't going to win because we knew Bronson Reed was going to get involved and beat the crap out of him, which happened. That was the only good part of this match. And then Damian Priest, we knew was going to win this match overall, right? It was between him, Rollins, and Sheamus. And when you factor in the reasons for both of them, you knew Damian Priest was ultimately going to come out with the dub. And so he did. The match and the actual in-ring work rate was not bad. I just expected more. When you have Sheamus, who's great in the ring, Rollins is great in the ring. What's his name? Damian Priest also has a very solid and very cool moveset. I thought all of that would mix together to make a pretty good match. But quite frankly, this match was just average, right? With these four people in the ring, you would expect this match to be a lot better than it was. There wasn't really that many great false finishes. There was a moment where I thought Dom was going to win for a second, so that was decent booking. But other than that, nothing really was special about the moves inside of this match, and commercials ate up like 40% of this match anyways, right? So, I mean, what do you want, right? At the end of the day, we knew Damian was going to win, and we know that now that Damian has won, he's not going to beat Gunther for that World Championship. Obviously, Finn Balor or a Judgment Day member or something is going to happen that prohibits him from winning the championship back. So again, we have another meaningless and pointless feud for Gunther as a world champion. And that's just all his title reign has been. It's just meaningless feuds and meaningless matches that, quite frankly, have not been that good. The last great match that Gunther did was versus Damian Priest at SummerSlam. And before that, the last great match was back in May at King of the Ring versus Randy Orton. And before that, who knows when his last great match was? Like, seriously. Maybe it was like Chad Gable in the later parts of 2023 last year on that episode of Raw. Other than that, he hasn't done anything. He really hasn't. He's wrestled maybe like 4 or 5 notable matches in the last year and a half, and only 2 of them have actually been any good. So, again, I don't really know what to say about Gunther as champion. This Fatal 4-Way was mid, but the biggest thing was Bronson Reed coming out and beating the crap out of Seth Rollins. He fights around with Sheamus for a bit and fights around with Damian Priest, hits a tsunami on, I think he had a tsunami on Damian Priest and Sheamus actually, which was kind of cool. And then after this happens, Dominic's like hiding ringside or whatnot, and then he sneaks in after and hits his own splash on Sheamus, goes for the cover. Sheamus ends up gets interrupted by Damian Priest. Damian Priest then is still on the ground, obviously, because he's reeling from the tsunami. Dominic jumps off to hit a splash. Damian catches him in a very smooth transition into the South of Heaven chokeslam, and that's it. Damian Priest wins. Him and Gunther go into a standoff. Right before this happened, though, is that, Bronson Reed thing, like I mentioned. He basically hits a tsunami on Seth Rollins through the table. I thought that was absolutely awesome because Michael Cole, that call he does for Tsunami is absolutely incredible. I'm going to be honest, right? As much as I bash this dude, he's doing a great job with that call specifically. And Bronson Reed basically brutalizes Seth Rollins. Puts him through a table. It looked like a nasty splash on that table. Made it was pretty cool. The table explodes because there's so much mass on the table, obviously. So, yeah, it was honestly pretty awesome. And then you end off with Damian Priest and Gunther staring each other down. And that's it, man. Monday Night Raw tonight, quite frankly, I was not impressed at all. I think there was a couple good things as per usual. There's always going to be at least 1 or 2 good things about a show. But in totality, this was just a mid-production. It just was, right? The choppiness sometimes with the segments, the botches in the match, you had people dang near breaking their necks, and the fact that nothing carried any significance is also a problem because it's like, why am I watching this, right? And the promo segment at the beginning with Liv Morgan, she's not capable of actually carrying the show. I thought that Triple H would actually know that, but apparently not. So overall, you have I would give this episode like a 5 out of 10. It's not garbage per se, but it definitely was not good, and a lot of the stuff that happens was either meaningless, or just straight up boring, or just wasn't executed that great, outside of a couple things. So, yeah, 5 out of 10, mid-episode in my personal opinion, but, hopefully next week can be good, and hopefully this episode of SmackDown, with all 4 members of the OG Bloodline pulling back up, is going to be fire. So, we'll see what it do. Let me know what you guys think about this episode of Raw in the comment section below. But that's all from me. I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. One love.